Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Tehillim Treasures, where we will plumb the beautiful depths and treasures of Tehillim from the very beginning of Tehillim to the end of David HaMelech's masterpiece. This episode is brought to you by Chazaq. Chazaq is an organization that helps public school children become Shomrei Torah mitzvahs, exposes them to the beauty of Torah and mitzvahs. Imagine for a moment you're standing in a store or you're walking down the street. You know the neighbor. You've known them for many years. You see their children riding their bike in the driveway. And you know they're Jewish. But now there's someone who can help them take the next step. And that is Chazaq, with countless programs after school and other wonderful programs to help expose them to the beauty of Yiddishkeit. If you know someone or know someone that knows someone that can help these children, then please email at psty@chazaq.org. This episode is also brought to you by Chickens for Shabbos. Chickens for Shabbos is exactly what it says it is, plus more. There are many people. There are Melamdim's children. There are Agunis. There are Grushis. There are families that do not have simple essentials for Shabbos and for life. Whatever they need, Chickens for Shabbos is there to provide. Please do your utmost to help in any way you can. This week, we are going to be doing Kapitel Kuv Zayin and Kuv Ches, chapters 107 and 108 in David HaMelech's masterful Sefer Tehillim. And so we begin with Kuv Zayin. Now, for some of you, it may seem familiar. Probably not for many of you, but this kapitel is Hoidu L'Hashem Ki Tov Ki Lo Olam Chasdai, not the regular Harel that we speak of, Hoidu L'Hashem Ki Tov Ki Lo Olam Chasdai, that we say in Psukkah Zimra, but a different Hallel, a different praise that is said by many on Erev Shabbos. And in this chapter, we go through many of the events that happened that Klal Yisrael needs to give praise for. We know that four people need to give thanks. They need to give their gratitude. And they are people who was released from prison, people who passed through a desert, people who went through a sea, and finally, somebody who was healed from an illness. So says the Gemara in Brachas. The truth is that the Jewish people did all of that. We were freed from prison by Yetzias Mitzrayim. We were in Mitzrayim, which was a prison. And then we passed through a desert. Of course, we went through a sea. And finally, at Har Sinai, we were healed. The Jewish people have to give Hoidai Sulahalo, thanks and praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for our very existence. You know, I want to tell you that the Ma'or Einayim, the great Chernobler, says that each person goes through these challenges, or some of these challenges, every week. We go through spiritual prisons, where during the week we have to go to work, we have to go to our jobs, and we face all types of nisyonis, all types of challenges. We feel like we're imprisoned. We go through a desert of spirituality. We go through seas of difficulties, and of course, we have to be healed from the difficulties and the challenges that we face. So therefore, all of these things that happen to us during the week, we have to give praise for them Erev Shabbos, when we've survived the weeks. So this chapter is recited by many. It's called Hoidi. That's the way the Hasidim call it, where they give thanks and praise to Hashem every Erev Shabbos Kodesh before they daven Mincha. Now, when I originally wrote to this kapitel in a weekly series in the Ated many years back, it was about 10 years ago, I actually wrote this chapter on the week that there was a great tragedy. It was the week that 3 Israeli teenagers, boys, Bachrim, were kidnapped at a bus stop as they were hitchhiking to their homes. Their names, Naftali Frankel, Gilad Shair, and Eyal Yifrach. Those 3 Bachrim were Nebuch killed. And for 18 days, Jews everywhere were united to try to save these. At the time of this recording, we are davening and praying, and hopefully by the time you see this, those people will be saved. Hashem should answer our prayers. But 230 people were captured in the Simchas Torah massacre. And after they were captured, and after we received word of their demise, of their death, I wrote a letter to their families. I'd like to read it to you, because I'd like to tell you what we did and what we should all do in times of challenge. My name is Yechiel Spero, and I am spending the first part of my summer at Camp Dora Golding, where I spent my summer months 10 years ago. 600-something boys ranging in age from 7 to 15. Campers are American boys who enjoy what all American boys enjoy, sports and games and fun and outdoors, and it's really a great camp. Friday afternoon, before Shabbos, it's a challenge getting the boys off of the courts into the showers so they can prepare readily for Shabbos. And we came up with an idea. When we received word of the tragic death of your children, so we were all in shock and we cried, and we decided we have to do something. And we came up with an idea. When we heard that your children were missing, Rabbi Aaron Leib Steinman had encouraged participation of a Shabbos before Kabbalah Shabbos. And the news of your children's deaths, we thought would be a good time to implement a Seder that lasts L'Zecher Olam, as an everlasting memorial to your children. Now, I wrote this 10 years ago, and 10 years later, although I'm not still in that camp, but the camp has an incredible, incredible Seder. Every Erev Shabbos, it's called ESPN, which happens to be the name of a very popular sports channel. But it's Enter Shabbos Properly Now. So think about that. The first week, 262 boys came. They learned for a half hour, 131 hours of Limud HaTorah. It's happened every single Shabbos over the last 10 years, and in Mitzvah Hashem it will continue. We all need to daven and to thank Hashem every moment of every day. Sometimes we can't catch our breath, but when we do have a chance to stop and breathe, when we have a chance to look back at the week and to thank Hashem for so many things, we need to know that we have to give thanks and gratitude to the Ribbono Shel Olam. And we have to enter Shabbos properly now, every Shabbos, no matter where we are. If we're in camp, and most of the weeks we're not, we have to thank Hashem. We have to say Hoidu for saving us, for taking care of us, and for bringing Yeshua's, Refuah's, and Nechamas to the entire world. I ended off that they come for our boys because your children were known as our boys, I wrote in the letter. And they come so they will never forget. And neither will we. So Ribbono Shel Olam should send the Yeshua for all those that need. We move on to the next kapitel, Kapitel Kuf Ches, chapter 108, Shir Mizmar LeDavid. And we say in this kapitel very famous words that we recite in Shemona Esrei, so that your beloved ones may be released, let your right hand save and respond to me. Well, again, at that time, and again now, our children were held in captivity. I say our children because every child in Klal Yisrael, every person in Klal Yisrael is Acheinu Kol Beis Yisrael. And that war or operation was known as Operation Protective Edge. And of course, we were hoping for the best. We were hoping to hear good news, which ultimately we would receive news that was not so good. And the ptira of 3 precious children. And at that time, I received an email from a young man who was serving in Gaza at the time. And again, it's so appropriate now. It's unbelievable. But I sent him a letter of Chazaq. He was a Talmud of mine who was serving in Gaza, and he gave me much more chizuk than I could ever give him because he wrote me back. I haven't been able to find enough time over the last few days to describe what things are like here. But had I gotten around to writing something, it probably would have looked very similar. I've been up through the past few nights on missions. However, I am committed to giving a daf yomi shir when I have some time during the day. And there is no doubt that there's something inspiring about this experience. And he writes that there was a lone soldier who came from Texas to serve in the IDF who was killed a few days ago. One of his friends posted online, it would be nice if some people came to the Levaya. 20,000 people came. The next day, another lone soldier, a soldier who had nobody there for him in Eretz Yisrael. So all of his brothers and sisters came, 30,000 the next day. And he writes, there are tons of stories to tell, and hopefully, when this all ends, there will be time to tell them. Gotta run now. So here we are, 10 years later, and the same challenges face Klal Yisrael. And we have the same tefillah of Leman Yecholsun Yedidecha, so that your beloved ones may be released. Hoshir Yemincha Ba'aneni, let your right hand save and respond to me. Somebody told me another story, a story that happened this time around, where there was again a lone soldier who was killed in the Simchas Torah massacre. And at that time, his father came from America to his Levaya in Eretz Yisrael. He hoped he would make it on time, because in Eretz Yisrael, generally, they like to bury the people as soon as they find out Minig Yerushalayim is not to let bodies stay overnight. He made it, Baruch Hashem. On the way, he was an Einan, not mechuyev in the mitzvah of tefillin. He's not allowed to put on tefillin. But he turned to the person next to him, an irreligious Jew, and he asked him if he'd be able to wear the tefillin for him. The fellow readily agreed, and so did the person behind him, and the person behind him. By the time the flight was over, tens, perhaps a few hundred, decided to help, to be noiseh ba'oil, to share the burden, to do a mitzvah, to do something. Leman yecholsun yedidecha, hoshia yemincha va'aneni. We ask Hashem to release those who are imprisoned, both those who are imprisoned physically, as well as the many Yidden around the world who are imprisoned and struggle because they feel they're prisoners in their own lives. May Hashem save them and protect them. B'karev. Until next time, Zagazon.